Welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of Mr. I'm Mr. Pierre, and I am joined by a gentleman who I had the honor of working with way back in the day, the one and only Mr. Kenneth Joseph. So welcome to the show, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you so much. I am very honored and excited to be here.
We're glad to have you here. I'm very glad to have you here. I'm very glad to have this conversation with you about sort of what brought you into education, what's kept you, and what you're up to right now. So if we can start off with that, sort of, how long have you been in education?
Oh, wow. I think back and I enjoyed talking about this, but I've been now in education and now in the past 17 years officially. And I say officially because, of course, it's one of those things that prior to being an official teacher, you were already doing some of those kind of things. So officially 17 years. I began in music now 32 years. And when I think back from those 32 years, I was always teaching.
And you say officially because I think a lot of educators are thinking the same thing of like, before I earned my credentials, before there was the title from the state or whoever, like you were doing what you love to do. And you talked about music. Can you talk a bit more about that? What were you doing with music?
Absolutely. I I began at the age of 8, learning how to play steel pan. It's one of those things that I love talking about because at that time, my godmother said, "Hey, you're doing so well in school. You should go ahead and learn to play steel pans," which I did not like. And I began doing it just for her. And it's one of those things that after some sort of time, I eventually began to enjoy steel pan. But I began to play steel pan professionally for a while. And I think the teaching aspect of that, as I mentioned, is one of those things where steel pan, it's taught through 2 different methods. One through the written method where you're reading music, and one through the oral tradition. And through the oral tradition is that someone teaches you either by telling you play B, C, D, or someone showing you how to play B, C, D. And that's one of those things where I say officially 17 years, but I think as a teacher, I've been teaching since the last 30 years.
Sensation. I know when I had the honor of being in the same school as you, being able to come down and watch you do just that, of showing kids exactly at least for myself, I saw the sheet music, but seeing you be hands-on and saying like, hey, hit this like this, was something that was a joy because music is, something that I love as well. I wish I could play. However, I just know Twinkle Twinkle on the piano. That's it. But yeah, you were an awesome educator who, the kids gravitated and they excelled when they were with you. So if I could ask, what sort of brought you into education?
It's as I mentioned before, my godmother was the one to introduce me, or to encourage me rather, to learn to play steel pan. And she was also an educator. She has passed away, but she was also an educator, and she was the one who I kind of sort of emulated to follow through in the footsteps. She taught elementary school for a while. Then she migrated to the Bahamas from Trinidad and Tobago, and she continued teaching elementary school. And she really enjoyed that. When I asked, like, are you interested in doing like administration work? And she said, well, no, I really want to be in the school system, in the classroom rather, and be hands-on, directly involved in teaching. So she never got into administration. She was a school leader, but not like officially as a principal or anything else. But she kind of continued to be hands-on teaching in everything she did. So she was the one that kind of really got me into the teaching aspects of things.
Do you feel like her influence of wanting to remain in the classroom as opposed to having a position outside of the classroom had a major effect on you and your sort of career choices, if you will?
Absolutely. Let me say this. My parents are, because they're still alive, but my parents are great. And, they had a great impact on all of their children's life. But my godmother, she was really hands-on. She was not like a godparent that's by name. I have to say I'm one of those, unfortunately. I love my godchildren, but I'm not as active in their lives. But my godmother, she was one of those who was really active, and she was not another name, but she was really influential in the sense that I attended the school that she taught at. Well, both schools, that is. When she switched, I switched, and she took education seriously. It wasn't a 8 to 4 job. It was one of those things that she was guiding me, like literally 7 days a week, 24 hours each day, encouraged me to be the best and to do the best, and talking about things, how to become better. And she was always there to just support me.
All right. Awesome. When I think of even myself and my journey into education, those people who see in you something that you may not see immediately and sort of caress, or as the Caribbeans might do, a bit more lovingly and aggressively say like, hey, this is something that you can do, and sort of push you in that direction. Was that the same that you experienced with your godmother?
Yeah, she was definitely that person to value the education system. I can think back when she would tell me to go to do my daily reading. Reading was something that I did not enjoy. I did not enjoy reading as a child. Only after grad school, and this is not even in grad school. This is upon completion of grad school.
After
I really. Yeah, it really. I only then gravitated to enjoy to actually to begin to read, because one of those things I said to myself, "Oh, it's a chore." But only after grad school I began to read, to enjoy reading. But I can see myself as a child when she said to me daily, "Okay, get your book, go read." I'll have that book in front of me, and my eyes just watch the page. But I say that. Not to manipulate the system, but just to really stress the importance of how she encouraged me daily to be the best. And even though I was not reading and I was kind of skimming through the system, those lessons didn't leave me. They stayed with me throughout, and I really, really value everything she has done for me. But by an unimaginable doubt, was one of my biggest influences in becoming an educator and in who I am today.
For us as Black men, it's rare to have other Black men as teachers. I know when I was in that building with you, there were just 3 of us, if I could remember correctly. Myself, you, Mr. Craggett, and then we had Dr. Mitchell, but that was admin.
Yeah.
Is that something that you still see even as you are, as you mentioned, in your unofficial 30th year of teaching, of just like, man, just not a lot of Black men who are educators? Or have you seen it shift a little bit, that there are a bit more?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is still the same. I don't know why, but it's definitely still the same. There aren't a lot of us, in this work. And there aren't a lot of men in general. Mm-hmm. Let's just, Black men, yes, we're definitely on the smallest of numbers, but I think there are definitely men in general, not a lot of men in the work, doing it.
It's interesting because I had a conversation. I have an idea that another person who we work with, Nikki, she was like, "Yeah, Willie, have you ever thought that for a lot of Black boys, school is a place where a lot of trauma occurred. For them, it wasn't a happy place. And so for them, the thought of, I want to go back into the place where so much trauma happened, that perhaps is a reason why. And for myself, being the child of immigrants, knowing that school is just placed at a different level for me. And so I also know that my experience is different. And so when I think of school, or I think of education, I know that it's like, look, I want to reach as many kiddos and be the teacher that I wish I had, so that they too, whatever they want to go into, they don't ever feel as if that they're inadequate or cannot achieve whatever it is that they have in front of them. But that aspect of school being a place where some kiddos were traumatized, that it's, when they think of school, it's just like, as you mentioned, some woman, more likely than not, a white woman, berating them or speaking harshly to them, saying that they're not good enough or antagonizing them. All these other factors that could have been traumatizing them, that the moment they got out, they're just like, look, I'm turning my back. I'm not looking to go back to that. That perhaps might be one of the reasons. But I also struggle with, like, more needs to be done to attract Black men into the field, into the profession. And then once they're there, like, stay there, that they're not just a token or stated to, just that be a token, and then not really be able to grow into whatever they want to do. But I can say, being with you, being with Jonah, man, that was a great year where I felt that I grew and I was seen, and the students that I had the privilege of interacting with was able to help them as well grow to be a little bit better.
I mean, I appreciate that sincerely, and I express the same sentiments. There's something about working with each other. We speak the same language without even speaking. When you came in, there's a level of respect I had for you as a person first, as a professional, and then seeing what you did with your class as well too. There's a level of respect that I had for you from what you did as well, and you can tell that our students, like, without a doubt, they enjoyed. You. And to go back to what you said about the trauma itself, because you and others saw our students not just as a job, but it was important for you to see them as a person and have respect for each and every one of them, and not just say, well, you know what, this child over here has had in the past some behavior problems. I'm not going to come in here and say, well, I heard that this child has these concerns, and I'm going to come in here and follow the trend.
Yeah.
Right. So you understand them for who they were, and not just for what you were told that they are. So, and that's the difference that you brought in, and again, a few others, not just to minimize anyone else's efforts.
Yeah.
But you saw them much more. And something I've lived by, and I still do. I tell all of past students, present students I encounter, like, I'm gonna respect you for who you are, and for not what your title is. I don't care if you're the executive director, you're the president, you are the CEO. That doesn't the position I may respect, but as a person, it's a difference. I respect you for who you are.
Right.
But you can be 2, you can be 3. I'm going to give you a respect as well too.
Yep.
And that's how I connect with our children. And I know we're talking about the lack of the Black man in our profession and the trauma. I come to this work not traumatized, or maybe if I am traumatized, I don't see that. but I really want to make a difference to help our children and to understand that, hey, you can really do this. If we just kind of speak the same language, you can really do this. And I'll give you an example. At my current school, I had a new teacher started last year, and I was in her class, just checking out some things. And I sent her an email, but the backstory is she was talking to her children, and she was like, "Yo, sis, give me a minute." And I said to her, when she said sis, I said, "I loved it." And she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She was like, I was like, "No, there's nothing to apologize for." I said, "Here's why. You were talking to our children as if you know them. You're not talking down to them. You're speaking with them, right? And that's what they know, is meeting them where they are to get their attention. It wasn't disrespectful at all. It was just meeting them where they are." And she's like, "Oh my God." I was like, it was everything for me, because you were going to relate to them, for them to even to relate to you.
Right.
And that to me was on point.
Yeah. I think all teachers who are their authentic selves see the kiddos for who they are. Don't try to force yourself into this mode. Just be you. And if you can see the kids as who they are as well, like you said, meet them where they're at, then when the children see that you see them, then they rise. Oh, that's dope. That's dope. Oh, yeah. And that was something that I saw you do. Yeah, or at least when I was present in your classroom, like there was one gentleman, I want to say he graduated right before Corona hit, and he used to play the drums, and he had glasses. I'm blanking out on his name, and we don't need to say his name, but the way he would play.
Yes.
So you know who I'm talking about. The way he would play was just amazing. And like, yeah, just amazing. And that affirmation that I'm sure he must have received from you and others to know, like, oh, you got it, kid. Mr. Pierre's definitely got it. I does not have it. I can just take 2 pencils and beat. But the way he played, and the confidence and the joy that he would play while he was in your class, oh, I wish I could remember his name. I wish it was in your book.
You know what? And I'm thinking of a young man. There are two young men I'm thinking about right now, because you said you were playing the drum set, and I'm picturing two. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because there are two young men I'm thinking about who I am in contact with right now. One of them uses me regularly as a reference for a job application. Yeah. And hands down, I said yes. Yeah. I recommend this young man for the job he's applying for. He used me twice, actually, I should say. When we spoke, may have been last week or week before. The other young man, he is about 23-ish now. The other young man is around 19. And this other young man, I was in a fast food restaurant, the drive-through. Yeah. And I ordered something, and I came out, and he said, "Hey, pull up." It wasn't ready as yet. He came outside to me and said, "Mr. Joseph, I lost your number, but I wanted to invite you to our high school graduation." And he said, "I didn't have your number." And that was the first thing he said to me. It wasn't even about, "Hey, how are you doing?" It was like, "Hey, I lost your number. I wanted to invite you to our graduation, and I'm sorry I didn't have it." And that meant the world to me. Yeah. That meant the absolute world to me, because it was genuine. He really wanted me there. But he didn't have my number. And I said, it's okay. I appreciate it. I said, the intention was good. Just you thinking about me, meant a lot. And if it's either those two young men I'm speaking about right now, I appreciate that.
And I think you bringing that up about both of those young men, us as educators, that is sort of like a lot of times the system wants to see like this immediate growth of that. If I see the 7th grader by the end of 7th grade year, they should be here. By the end of 8th grade, they should be here. Whereas I feel as in talking to you, your mindset is more of, I recognize that this kiddo, I'm probably not going to see the growth in a year or two. Maybe it's going to be 5 years. Maybe it'll be when they're 23 that they're going out for a job and they're using me as a, like you mentioned, a reference. Mm-hmm. That if you don't see it in 1 or 2 years, like you're not deflated. You're like, no, I know I'll put the work in. I'll still see this kiddo in the building. We'll have our interactions. It might even be, I see him in a drive-through when I go to get something quick to eat, and know that what I am doing is going to encourage this person to be better. And that we as educators, we have the long view, not just the short. Yeah, we want to make gains within an academic year, but we're also thinking of the long view of like, what's this kiddo going to do when they're 23, when they're 25, when they're 30, when they reach out to me, when they have their kids, like, what school are you still teaching at? I would love for my kid to be, to have you as a teacher. Like that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and I had that full circle moment. One of my former students, she's about 20-ish. Mm-hmm. Mom had a second baby later on in life, and her daughter is now in kindergarten. So she had two options for school. The previous school that you and I worked at.
Yeah.
And the school that I work at now. And she said to me, I love the previous school because, there's history. My older daughter went there. I live near to that school. But the school that you work at now, that I know you and I know that you're there.
Yeah.
And, so she chose my current school because she knows I'm there. Mm-hmm. And while I don't teach her daughter, she just knows that I'm there, and she believes in what I do. So, I definitely appreciate that. And that's that full circle moment where I taught her daughter, who is now, I think 19, 20, but I had her back in 4th grade. And she has that moment now where like, here's what I want to go to that other school. There's different reasons why, but I know you're here, so I'll go with you.
I think that speaks volumes, that as a teacher, and that was something that I had to learn, in the school that we both taught at, helped me with that, of like recognizing myself as a teacher and recognizing that education it's funny in that as much as I would like to not think of it as a business, unfortunately, that has for teachers and your well-being, you have to sort of remember that sometimes you're going to have to make that choice of leaving someplace because there is sort of like that business aspect of it of, as a human being, this is what I need. If you can't provide it and somewhere else can, then so be it. Then I'm going to have to go elsewhere. And for any teachers who are listening, to remember, like, you can love a school, but you got to make sure that you're loving yourself as well too, to be the best you wherever you happen to be, and to not feel as if, like, if you do choose to go elsewhere, like you're somehow less of a teacher. It's like, no, that happens sometimes in business, and sometimes it is personal and sometimes it's not. But to keep that mindset of like, if you're going to be the best, you have to think of yourself as well too.
In anything you do, we are only here for a short time, and we have to maximize on that. But I think in order to maximize on that, we have to put ourselves first. I love every student I've worked with. I love the students I'm currently, a part of their lives. But I do have to put myself first, so I'm able to give more of myself to anyone that comes into my presence.
Amen. Amen. Like if we were on a plane and those masks come down first, we're told, hey, make sure you put it on yourself. You may love the kiddo who's next to you, but you got to make sure that you are alive in order to be able to help and support and rescue whoever. Not that we as teachers are rescuing, but the analogy of, you got to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of anyone else. So that mindset too is one that I think for a long time before the pandemic, it was like, got to do everything for the kids, even if it's at the detriment of you. I know that was something I struggled with a little bit, whereas now it's just like, if I'm going to be the best Mr. Pierre, I got to make sure that Woolie's good. And to make sure that means sometimes, I may not finish everything that I may have wanted to, but if I get 80% of it done, then I'll be good to go the next day. Cool.
I think that's also cultural as well too. You don't always have to expect closure. You don't have to have closure in every single thing. It's okay sometimes to leave some things undone, because it will get done. It really will get done. We don't have to have closure for every single thing.
Is that something that you've always been able to, I guess, acknowledge, or has that happened just recently?
That is a semi-recent development for myself. It's not something that I've had all the time. And, you sometimes, I think that the biggest lesson is not only going to school, but it's the experience. And I've had to sometimes fall down, and then get back up and say, you know what, I have to change the way I look at things. And I'll share a personal experience, which I still question myself why I even did this in the moment. But now, as I've gotten a little more older and a little experience, I'm like, okay, I shouldn't have done that. So I remember there was a Sunday morning, I was at the same school we were working at, and I had to go to the ER that day, and they kept me a few hours. Nothing life threatening, at least at that time, and they kept me a few hours, and to get certain things under control. And I left the ER probably 2-3 hours later. And the first place I went to after on that Sunday was to school to get some things ready for the next working day. And I think back now and I'm like, why do you do that? What were you thinking? Because I'm one of those who, on some level, I'm still big on not taking days off, right? Mm-hmm. I try myself, I don't need a day off here and there. I can kind of push through. I've gotten better. I've gotten better to say, I need to take a day here to get myself together. I've gotten much better with that. But at that time, I'm like, no days off. Right. I think to prior 5 years, I may have gotten like 5 days off outside of the summer months. But I bring that up because that was not the smartest move. While I was still cleared to work on the Monday, thinking back now, I just said to myself, it can wait. It can really wait until Monday to get it done.
Yeah.
Or if it wasn't done, just do something else in place.
Right.
But to back to your question, it's not something that I've had all the time. I have had to grow into where I am now. I'm still not 100%, but I have to grow into. I'm still growing into being, me first. Because I think the biggest picture, man, I just don't want our kids to be, to not be successful. Because I know there are many folks that took chances on me. There are many folks that did a lot of stuff to get me where I am. And I want to be supporting our children all the time. So that's my biggest, deciding factor. But I'm getting there.
Yeah, finding that balance is tough. And when you see the gaps, when you see like the potential there too of like, I can do this to help so-and-so and such kiddo, like, yeah, it is. Yeah, I got to find that. And even the word balance is tough. It's just finding the right, I don't have the word at the moment, but yeah, finding that sweet spot of how much to put you first as well as pour into the kiddos. Because if you're running on empty, there's nothing you're going to be able to do or do well for the kids. And so you got to find that sweet spot. That this week it might be 80, next week it might be 100, and next week after that maybe it's 30, depending on where you were or where you are. Yeah, so it's finding that, yeah, balance is, I guess, the only word that I can think of at the moment. But yeah, we got to find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in thinking of that, sort of the segue into like, what are the things that bring you joy so that you can be your fullest self for kids? What's bringing you joy at the moment?
I mean, just really seeing them, strive. What brings me joy is, I mentioned to you about earlier, the students who, they want to talk to me. They finish school and they want to keep in contact. I have a couple of college students who, I had this group of students were my very first bunch of students when I moved across to Connecticut. They were then in second grade, and now they are college sophomores. So my teaching trajectory, I began in Trinidad in 2005. I moved to the U.S., went to grad school. From grad school in Illinois, I came across to Connecticut, and I began teaching here in 2010. And those were the first bunch of students I met here in second grade, and they're now in college sophomores. And when they message you for simple things that they remember, your birthday, they message you to say, "Hey, this semester went well. It was hard. I'm doing this. I'm part of this dance team. I'm doing volleyball." These simple things, and they don't have to message me. They're in the best part of their lives. Like they're in they're 18, they're 19. They don't have to remember me.
Yeah.
But yet still they're doing it. And for me, that's a big thing. And I don't take those things for granted. And so what brings me joy is those things. Sometimes the ones right now mightn't see it, and that's okay. But I see the potential in them. I had a student last year, more recently. He was in first grade, and his behavior was really not together. He was leaving the classroom, running out around the building multiple times. The time he tried to leave the building, that's a big safety concern. But looking at him now, this year to last year, and the work we put in to support that young man, I just hug him. I just hug that boy, and I'm like, that's what brings me joy. Forget his reading, forget his math, forget anything else. Like, he's in a safe space. He's in his second grade class. He wants to be there.
Awesome.
He's sitting down there. His teacher is speaking to him. He's learning. Like, he hasn't left the classroom, and we're in November. And that to me is like, that's gold right there. That's all that matters.
That's what's up. I like to ask some of the guests, and you being a person with music, if you were to create a quick playlist, who would be the first either 5 to 10 songs or artists that you would have on your playlist?
So as a musician, fun fact, I only got involved with Apple Music this year, and I'm like, oh, this is good. Like, after having like an iPhone for years, I'm like,
right,
this is good. Like, Apple Music is like dope. I can play stuff because I was pretty frugal, and I had and I love Pandora, but I had the free Pandora subscription for years.
Yep.
But moving from that to Apple, I'm like, ooh, I'm playing this every single day. So what's on my playlist right now? What I play every single day.
That's what's up.
From the new Beyonce Renaissance album, it definitely in the number one order. I play Cuff It. And I know some friends will be like, "You're a musician. Like, how does it tie into like what you play and stuff?" But you know what? I keep trendy, so
that's what you like.
Cuff It.
Okay.
I'm playing from the same album, Heated.
Okay.
Of course, because I love Steel Pan. I am playing from the BP Renegades. I'm playing Pan in a Rage. That's one of my favorites. Fourth, because I'm also biased myself, I'm playing one of my arrangements. It's called Bazody. And then fifth, Bazodee. And then fifth, right now, I'm on a little high. I was just last weekend in Indianapolis performing for a mentor of ours passed away. And I performed with Stokely from Mint Condition. And so I'm a little high from that. And I've been playing recently, like on repeat, What Kind of Man from Mint Condition. So that's on my top 5 in the playlist right now.
Okay. If folks wanted to hear more of your arrangements, where could they go to find your pieces?
There are a few of my music on YouTube. So you can just search in Kenneth Joseph Steel Pan, and you will definitely see some of my arrangements and my performances.
Excellent. Is there any are there any things that folks can sort of like purchase if they wanted to of your arrangements? Is there anything out there right now, or
nothing for purchase right now? And it's one of those things that I focus so much more in the academia side of things, the teaching and what's not. I'm now getting back into a lot of my performances because that's something that the craft is just, practice times, right?
Yep.
So I spend so much time just teaching, prepping for teaching. I'm getting back into the more of the playing now. That's a new part of my life.
Excellent. Well, folks, anyone who's listening to the podcast this week, something that I think was a real gem that you spoke about is just knowing that sometimes you gotta fall, make those mistakes to learn from it. It's not everything will be taught to you. Some things will come through experience. And if you're a music head, just like Mr. Joseph, go ahead and check him out on YouTube. That's Kenneth Joseph. And you said Bazody?
Bazodee, yeah, Bazodee.
All right, I'll be sure to check that out. I'm Mr. Pierre. He's Mr. Joseph. This has been another episode of the Chronicles of Mr. And we thank you for listening. We out.
Thank you.